Time now for our rants and raves. And Callie, you get to go first this week.
Okay, so I guess I am just the poster child for, feminist ridiculousness, or the people attacking feminists. Or people attacking women who, I don't get what's going on. On Tuesday's edition of Fox's Outnumber, which is a program with 4 women, and they have 1 male guest, but the hosts are 4 women. They mocked Morning Joe's co-host, Mika Brzezinski. They said she was emotionally speaking out against President Trump. Now, there have been 2 or 3 stories that Mika Brzezinski broke down in tears. She did not. As a matter of fact, she put on her Facebook, tearfully, really, review the tape. All eyes on that set were dry. Is this how you marginalize women who speak up? Interesting. I got some issues with Mika about some stuff on the show, but she's not tearing up.
No.
So stop it. And stop it, women. Come on.
Yeah. And that's another thing where they say something and repeat something they never did not see for themselves, and yet they're promoting it as if it were true.
Right. And before anybody sends me any email, I was sitting right here in this chair saying I didn't like what SNL did with Kellyanne Conway either. I just don't like all this stuff. Yeah, I know you all like that. I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
All right.
Okay.
Josh.
My combined rant and rave is for Facebook, which finally this week, after having said they were going to start acting against fake news, took an important step there. What they did was they said that certain stories, if they're fake stories, if they can find 2 different fact-checking outfits that say that a story is false, they will add to that story a disputed flag. So if you see it on Facebook, there'll be a line that says this story has been disputed right underneath the headline. On one hand, this is a good positive step. I'm glad to see Facebook interacting with fact checkers and those in the news industry. On the other hand, it's a pretty minor step. They don't say that these stories have been found to be false, simply that they are disputed. These are not stories. These are not stories where there is a dispute. These are made up, invented stories. The other piece is that even when they flag a story as fake, even if it's a site that only produces fake news, each story has to be flagged individually. So there was a story from the Seattle Tribune, which is an imaginary newspaper, about something about Donald Trump. That story was fake. They flagged that. But all the other stories that are just as fake are still on there perfectly fine. So they've got a ways to go.
All right, Jennifer.
I'm ranting today about all of the journalists and media outlets that blamed Hillary Clinton's loss in November on sexism and gender bias. And veteran reporter Cokie Roberts was someone who did this. A couple of headlines I have, for example, Washington Post, how sexism drives support for Donald Trump. Newsweek, the presidential election was a referendum on gender. ABC, understanding gender bias after Trump's election upset. Except guess what? The narrative was false. Earlier in the year, a couple of professors from NYU did an experiment that was designed to prove the gender bias. And the experiment involved them taking excerpts from the debates and restaging the debates, having actors play the characters. But they cast a female in the role of Donald Trump and a man in the role of Hillary Clinton. And they had them not just repeat the words, but use the same gestures, tone, body language. And what they found, surprisingly, was that Hillary Clinton was even more annoying as a man than she is as a woman.
All right. Good one. All right, Dan.
My rave is for John Roberts, the White House correspondent at Fox News. He was speaking to reporters at the press club in Washington, and he said, look, it's time to stop whining. This is a time when you need to get out there and start working your sources and finding out what is true and what is not. But give up the whining. I've been whining. I know we've all done a lot of whining, but really, it's time for us to put the whining aside and start working.
Is Scott Pelley whining?
I don't think he's whining. He's pointing out facts. As long as he follows it up with a story that backs it up, it's not whining.
All right.
Whining is good for a while. You have to whine if you're being kept out of coverage of certain things. But at some point, you have to start going out there and working and digging.
All right. I don't know what this is, a rave or a rant, but I just had to bring it up because anybody who's ever done a live shot or even live television, radio, or knows that there are perils at working from home or being out in the street where somebody gives you rabbit ears or something like that. Well, a BBC interview with somebody who was working at home from his home, and I think it was South Korea. This is what happened.
And I think one of your children has just walked in.
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me.
So, first of all, he straight arms the 3-year-old, pushes her away, and then the biggest kick was when the baby comes in,
Yes.
what do you call those things with the little walkers?
Right.
She got in all by herself, and then It was great.
And then the
I've had
heroic
that-
And the
Oh,
guy,
was great.
the guy had no sense of humor, though. He should have
no,
said,
no.
"Excuse me for a minute."
I've had that
When he-
happen with me, Linda Dorsina Fori.
Oh, really?
She's talking about fiduciary responsibility, and she said, I said, just a minute. I can hear her.
Right.
And again, what we want to do on the...
That's good.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
Didn't that happen to Tom Brady as well? He was doing an interview on one of the sports stations, I think, and you could hear the baby in the background
Yeah,
or
I'm
some
sure
kid
you've had a
asking.
few.
That's just life.
I've had all kinds of weird stuff happen in live
live
shots.
shots,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
but you have to.
Yeah.
gotta
It's
go
obvious
with it.
it's going on. You have to turn around, you acknowledge
You have
it.
to say it.
It's like,
the guy did,
this is
the
life.
guy played it straight.
It's
I
the
know.
work-life balance.
He
and
should
then
have
you
said,
turn back
Senator
to the
Fori
camera.
handled it
Yeah,
perfectly.
exactly.